Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and for the first time on the podcast, I can say that Carlton has won a final, defeating Sydney by 6 points in a gutsy elimination final win. Lockie, mate, how are you? And to kick things off, just take me through your emotions, how you felt, and what this experience has been like for you.
Gee whiz, I think we're going to be able to go on for hours and hours, so I'll try not to get too into it, but as you can see, my voice, or as you can hear, my voice is still recovering a little bit. We're a few days on, but almost lost my throat there at a few stages with just pure elation because, yeah, I can't think of many happier times being a Carlton fan than this one, I think.
Yeah, I've definitely been the exact same, and I think every Carlton supporter has, where there's just so much building into this, so many years, so much just in 2023 going into this contest. First final, 10 years, finally, just the elation, just the pure joy of, and it's hard to get too ahead of yourself because it only is just a finals win. And obviously we want more. We want multiple finals. I want a grand final win. That's the ultimate goal. But when we haven't had this for so long, and this has been just one goal that we've wanted to obtain, both of us have said multiple times on this podcast at length that we've only really seen 2 finals wins. We've only been at 1 final win. So to add another to that, you just can't not be happy, and just, you can't take the smile off my face. Every 2 seconds, I'm thinking about a new moment from that game. And it's just such a special time to be a Carlton supporter.
Truly. Oh my God. You're right. There's so many moments. As I was thinking about preparing for this, it's like, yeah, there's so many things you can pull out of this game, so many individual performances, the whole team. And yeah, I think, like, if I'm being completely brutally honest with you and everyone listening, I think there was a small part of me that was like, and I had to tell myself this during the game or else I wasn't going to make it through. I was like, if we do lose this game, I'm still proud of these guys for how they've turned the season around. We were going to sack Vossi. We were going to take the captaincy off Cripps. Like, it was so bleak. We've at least made it here and got this monkey off the back. So that was kind of like deep in me. But so when we actually got over the line, it was just like euphoric, genuinely.
That's the word. That is the word. And so, look, before we launch into this review, I want to go back to the start of this. I really want to get your full experience, because it's a podcast. We're talking about ourselves. We're talking about our own experiences. And I kind of want our stories to lead to hearing the listeners as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, I want to hear about your pre-game, how you felt going into this, and your whole experience for the game. Drop it in the comments below. If you're listening in podcast form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner, slide into the DMs, tweet at us, do whatever you need to do. I want to hear everyone's story, because that's kind of what makes this fun. Like, we get to share ours, and then you guys get to share yours as well, and we can kind of all communicate them together. So, Lockie, it's been 10 years, a full decade since we last played a final, 12 years since both of us actually went and saw us win a final. It's also been a while since you actually saw a Carlton game live in the flesh because of your European adventures. So kind of walk me through your pre-game experience, or what were you feeling at the time?
Oh, I love that. Yes, it was a long time coming as well, just being back at the beautiful MCG as well. So I guess it was a very special game for us. Asked my grandpa to come with us, which he turned down at first. He, like a lot of us, gets far too stressed watching the Blues. He even often just won't even watch them on the TV because he just gets too stressed out, and he has to watch the replay if he knows that we won. And I said in our tweet saying that, the last final he went to was actually a prelim in the early 60s, which is just insane, because he's been a mad Carlton man his whole life, and he just couldn't bring himself to go to those stressful games. So managed to pull him along. We had lunch on Lygon, plenty of Carlton action around there. Popped into Icon Park as well. He had a look at all the old memorabilia and obviously all the cups and everything there. So that was a nice little prees. And then, yeah, I think once I saw the G as we were like driving up, that was the first point where I was like sick in the stomach. I think I probably was texting with you and Baz, and it was like, okay, now I'm actually nervous. I think you might have tweeted out being like, when are the nerves supposed to hit? And I was like, yeah, they're not hitting yet. And once we saw the ground, it was like, yeah, here we go. And yeah, it was all on from there.
It was, yeah, you touched on it there. And I wanted to mention this because I am normally a very stressed human being, and particularly around football. At the games, I am just, I'm similar to you, Lockie, nervous wreck, panicking, immediately catastrophizing everything, doom and gloom. For as much as I try to be as positive as possible, and at times there is that, but in the back of my head, my brain's just thinking of all the worst possible scenarios and I'm freaking out. But it was the weirdest, most surreal feeling all day leading up to it. It was a calmness about me, and weirdly, it was an unsettling calm, because I feel like the calmness was freaking me out, not the actual scenario. I wasn't stressed out about the game, and I saw your message saying as soon as I saw the G, that's when it all hit, and I was expecting that as soon as I walked in, that all these nerves and the build up would hit me. But I don't know if anyone else was like this, and maybe it was just me telling myself, it's been 10 years. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Just try to take everything in, enjoy the moment, and just embrace the environment, embrace it all. Because I feel like in other moments, I maybe take them for granted, and because I'm stressed, I don't fully take it in. Whereas maybe the conscious effort did something, because walking into the ground, there was no nervous energy. It was just all smiling. I was just so happy about everything, getting to my seat, just trying to take in the atmosphere and all the pre-game stuff, the anthem. You got the banner, which I want to touch on at one stage. Like every single part of it was just me sitting there like a pig in shit, just so happy. I'm like, this is the greatest. Like, we don't even have to bounce the ball. Like, I'm just stoked that this is actually happening. I didn't believe that this was going to happen this year. And so for us to get to that stage, we're playing in a final, it was a surreal environment.
How good was that omen with the banner? That was the point where I first fired up. I was like, this is a good sign.
That was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. Not just because Sydney's banner collapsed off one side before, but, and I don't think I've heard anyone talk about this, but
I know what you're going to say.
Sydney's song played. How many times did they have to play this song before the boys realized we should probably leave the change rooms? At one stage, you're going like,
it was beautiful, wasn't it?
Because you won't understand this niche reference, but hopefully there'll be a couple. But it's a big trope in like professional wrestling that like when a bloke comes out to his entrance, the entrance plays and you're like, okay, he's coming out, and all of a sudden he doesn't come out. They sort of keep going through the song, and it'll show backstage, and all of a sudden he's been beaten down and he can't go to the wrestling match. I was hoping that would happen when they'd pan to it. It's like, Sydney, you're all knocked out. Something's happened. They can't play the game. Carlton's won by default. How good's this? But half the blokes didn't have their jumpers on. They didn't look prepared.
So funny.
And maybe that was an omen for the game, because a massive quick start by the Blues, kicking the first 2 goals of the game. What did you make of the start? And did you expect us to come out firing and kick the first couple of goals?
I think I had zero expectations of what was going to happen. I was just kind of like you. I was like, whatever is going to happen will happen. And, I was up and about with the Doc goal, but when that Charlie goal went through, like I'm very lucky that where I was sitting, there was probably about 4 Sydney supporters that I could see, and then about 10,000 Navy Blues. So I could kind of just go off as much as I wanted, and without fearing the consequences.
I was weirdly thinking the same thing, although the bay to my left was all Sydney. It was probably one of the only 3 bays in the whole MCG that was Sydney, but I was in the middle of mine, and to the whole right, it was just all baggers. So I definitely didn't feel like there was any issues throughout. But I mean, what a better way to start. There was so many thoughts going through my head before the game, thinking like, what's the best possible scenario? Who kicks the first goal that gets the crowd up the most. And part of me's going, just make it a Charlie goal. That'll be beautiful. Maybe a Cripper out of the middle. I didn't even contemplate Doherty, but I think that was just, it's a special moment. Good. Everything he's been through, well documented. For him to get that moment to kick things off, then into Charles, I maybe got a bit ahead of myself. We kicked those two in the first minute and a half, and I'm going, we're winning this by 100 points. Sydney aren't going to score here. And it maybe didn't pan out that way for the full game. And I will get into some specific moments throughout this episode because I want to hear your thoughts on it all.
Yep.
But I think for us to hang on and clinch this finals win, how big is that for you, Lockie? What were your kind of key takeaways, I guess, from this game and the actual result? We'll get into all the key fun moments at one stage, but just as a whole, to do it in the way we did, to get that win, what does that mean?
I think it will just grow every individual in this team and the team as a whole. Like the way that each of the players was obviously celebrated, spoke, like listening to each of them speak after the game. They're just like, you've just never seen this confidence in these guys. The way that Cripper's talking about all this, like he's just like, this has just taken him to another level that we didn't even think was probably possible. And how can this not just give you so much faith that no matter what happens on Friday night, we are going to be one of the best teams in the league next year?
Yeah.
That's what it tells me.
I agree. And again, whatever's going to happen next Friday against Melbourne is going to happen. The one issue probably throughout our probability to get maybe a little negative on winning the grand final this year is simply that we didn't make top four, and your chances of being able to make a grand final and win one outside the top four is difficult due to having to play more games, not getting the rest, and not getting that home preliminary final is that other big factor. Having to go to Brisbane if we beat Melbourne's always going to be a tough task, and I don't want to just sound super negative and go, just because we're playing Brisbane, if we beat Melbourne, that means we're going to lose, because I think if this team has shown you anything, that whoever we play, we've got what it takes to win games. The players are there. The moments are there. The guts and determination is there. And that was the big takeaway for me. You know, it wasn't a perfect performance by any stretch of the imagination, but in finals, and we've had such a limited experience watching them, particularly from a Carlton point of view, but trying to analyze from a higher level, looking at other games as well, it almost just doesn't matter how you win these games. No one is going to look back at this and go, gee, Carlton almost lost this game, blah, blah, blah. It's just, we won the game. The history book showed we won, and it's just about getting over the line. And to then do it in the way that we did, where we showed we've got such a good high level to the way we play, but with some imperfections, there was the determination, guts, and heart to hold on. I think it's just massive. For those players to then experience this again, like they did in season through that 9-game winning stretch of holding on and clinging on to those massive wins in do or die games, to now do that in a final after what's happened last season for these boys. Like you mentioned, the confidence now for these lads, sky's the limit, genuinely.
Yeah. It's actually interesting you bring that up. I feel like that's a concept I grappled with a bit over the last couple of years, because last year, maybe one of my worst takes ever was at the start of the year, I was pretty confident that the Pies were not going to be a super strong team. And then they just, obviously, as we all know, kept somehow managing to win all these games, just hanging on. And it's been proven now, like they've obviously backed it up this year. They are a good, strong team. And I just, it was hard for me to be convinced that, you know, that determination, whatever you want to call it, can just will you over the line. And that's where we're at. Like, we've gone from losing those games to, like, you can call, sometimes it's lucky things like Anderson missing the goal a few weeks ago, but it doesn't matter. Like, we got the W and we just keep continuing to get them.
Yeah, it's almost as if my analysis, I guess, drawing that comparison that you just made is potentially more
Mhm.
around the positions that we've put ourselves in. I feel as if in a lot of the games, we've given ourselves the lead in a lot of these
Yep.
contests. And we've almost been holding on rather than, and I know there's a few instances of us doing it in the reverse of being the ones to kick that final goal to
Mm,
regain the lead. But the element of playing better football, of not not feeling like we're stealing a win. Like this
true.
game for me
Good
felt as
point.
if we were the better team. Yeah, it was
Yep.
seesawing a bit. There were moments where Sydney were on top, but for the large stretch of that game, you can ask a neutral and they would say, look, Carlton probably were better. And yeah, you can
Yep.
cop them winning because of those factors. And that probably gives me a bit more confidence around just what we can achieve because of the amount of tight games that we have won, in that
Mm,
it feels a bit more deserving. It wasn't as if we were snatching it at the last minute.
yep.
It felt a little bit more controlled, even though maybe the end of this game didn't feel super controlled.
Yeah, no, well said. You're right that there is that difference there. But regardless, we just keep racking them up, which feels good.
Definitely. And
Crazy.
a big feature of this game in particular, I think, keen to get your thoughts, Lockie, and the thoughts of the listeners as well. Drop
Yeah.
it in the comments. Let us know at Navy Blue Corner on socials. Is that I felt that we got a lot out of our role players. And I felt that that
Yeah.
was a big reason in why we won this game. Probably not a very hot take. I've definitely seen it around a lot.
Yeah.
But how big a role in the win do you think their performances played, considering, I guess, guys like Charlie, Harry, you could even maybe say Cripps to an extent throughout the game, maybe didn't have as large an impact that we thought they'd maybe have in a final? And
Yep.
whose performances from those lesser lights would you like to highlight as well?
Oh god, there's so many of them. I mean, yeah, like a lot of people are talking about this, and this is one of the reasons why I feel so good going into this Friday as well. Because
Mm,
like the guys that you mentioned, obviously Harry's not going to be playing, but Doc's probably another one that I'd put in that boat where I'm
yeah,
like he played well, but I probably, we can get an even better game out of Doc
yeah.
next week. Yeah. Oh my god, where like
Give me a name.
who
Give me a
who do we
name.
even start with? Matty Cottrell. He's my 3 vote man.
What a game. Did you
He just
did
did
you
not put a foot wrong.
when you were, I guess, thinking about this game, we touched on it a little bit in the build up in the combined 23 episode, looking back
Mm,
at the 2013 squad and the squad now, discussing maybe guys in finals that we don't expect them to step up and have a big moment. It seems to always happen. Every
yeah.
team has that guy in a finals game that you don't expect him to have a big one, and all of a sudden, this maybe, and not to be too rude, but I'm just throwing it out there, like the bottom six kind of player steps up and all of a sudden
Yeah.
has one of the better games. Was Matty Cottrell a name that you ever considered to have such an influential performance?
Well, like I think we kind of fenced that in our preview. We were like, every one of these blokes could be that guy on
Mm,
his day. But also Cottrell, yeah, like the Vossi has spoken so much about like how important he is throughout the season. But there's been times throughout the season where we're like, oh, is he a best
mm,
23 guy? Um, just insane. Could have kicked 3 goals if that one just
mm.
went to the other side of the post. And um, I mean, I've got my 4 favorite moments written down, and the third one was his chase down, which was just so
Mm.
crucial. Like if Gordon had managed to somehow get a goal kicked there, like it could have been a very different story. And that's all Cotters.
No, he was someone that I think if you look back at the build-up show, I think I dropped him for the game, which I'm glad Vossi doesn't listen to me, to be honest, because he's kind of that fringe player where he has been fine and he's had some good games, had some
Yep.
lesser games this season. It was more around like, oh, what's his role? What is he actually offering? And I think as soon as you take maybe Hollins out of this team, his role steps up. And
Yep.
to see a guy who, Carlton supporter at heart as well, step up in that moment.
We love a childhood bagger.
He's got the energy to do it, but I wasn't sure he had that in him. And his spark in the first half was ridiculous. The 2 goals, almost got the third. There was definitely one bay that I think their line of sight must have looked like it went in, because one bay was going ballistic. And I'm pretty sure that didn't go in. I had to double check there, but it's just massive when you needed a goal. I think that sliding one was my favorite of his goals, where it was so calm and just It was so silky. Just slides, picks it up, goes past one, and it just wobbles in. I was very fortunate that my view just saw that slowly go in. It was like time stopped, and then, like you said, to then back up that massive first half with, when you need someone to step up and chase down and create a moment. That chase down tackle on Errol was just, it's a moment that we're now going to think about and talk about for years to come. And that's probably where my excitement comes from the most in this game. We've had such limited finals to talk about. We've had 2.
I was thinking about this.
We've had the Essendon game. We've had the Richmond game. And now we've got the Sydney game. And that's still not enough. We need more than this. And I know we will get more than this. But that's going to be one of those performances that we speak about in such highlight. Another one I really wanted to touch on was Caleb Marchbank. Very under the radar performance. Another one I maybe didn't have in the team going in, but I just thought his courageousness, maybe the what you need to do is make sure I'm dropping you this week, and then throw those guys into the team because they're going to play well. Just thought he was incredibly courageous, fought hard all day, and there was so many little moments where we needed someone to take a mark in defense, or at least put some body on. He seemed to be one of those guys, along with the Wiedering and the guys we expect. But when I maybe wasn't expecting Marchbank to be that guy, for him to step up the way he did, putting his body on the line, I just thought was such a testament to him, knowing he's had so many issues with his body.
For sure. Yeah, no, 100% agree. There was so many impressive moments, and I guess his confidence will just continue to build too, right? Like, where there's no reason that he can't be doing performances like this every week. Like, this is what we were hoping we were going to get from him pre-injury, really.
100%. It's exciting to see. Did you have any other names that you'd like to highlight of more of these role players?
Well, I mean, I'll just throw Kemp in as well with the 3 there, like with Margie and Wes and Kemp. Like, he's now he hardly puts a foot wrong too. Like, obviously there was the little TDK 1-2, but if you take that out of your memory, like, just so good other than that. I mean, I know I'm doing spoilers for votes, but if Cottrell was my best on ground, then I had Akers second. Watching the replay, particularly, like, the second half was just like Blake Akers half. And it just adds to it as well, like how clearly sore that man was, and just dealing with that shoulder, and how he bombed that ball forward into space, and then he's almost the first one there, and he's helping Fogg with the tackle and grabbing his shoulder or collarbone or whatever. It's like, man, this guy, 3rd round pick or whatever it was that we
future third. How good.
See you later.
What a pickup. And Akers was someone that's had a bit of a shaky start to his Carlton career. Started really well, dropped off, and it was almost as if any time Blake Akers got the ball, it was a turnover midway through this year. When we weren't playing well, he certainly wasn't playing well. But what we were all hoping for, I think, with Blake Akers is, when you looked at this team, one, we needed a winger. We needed an experienced body on that wing that knew how to do it. But there was also a bit of, wow, look at what he did last season for Freo in finals. He was by far their best player in all of those games. Yeah. And that's insane to think about when you do look at that Freo team. You wouldn't say that Blake Akers is probably, top 5 out of the guys you think you're going to get an impact from. But his willingness to work, and clearly with that shoulder collarbone causing him some discomfort, and we'll talk about what he
Yeah.
did. Maybe that's a bit of a Freudian slip for what he was able to accomplish throughout that game. It's on the brain, but his coverage of the ground is insane. I'm not sure I've seen many players be able to do that, and it's clear how much wingers play a role in what we're trying to get out of this game, saving us one way, kicking goals the other. Massive, massive moments from a guy like Akers, and that is one of the best performances I think I've ever seen him play, and that's big because you need that experience in finals, knowing we don't have a lot of it. Knowing we've seen it again, you just think, like, wow, how did we get this guy for a future third?
It's crazy, isn't it? And yeah, the running is a great point. Like him and Kochel in that same boat with a bunch of others, where I feel like 3 or 4 years ago when we spoke about like our mid-wing line, like the defensive running was something that we just looked at and we were like, man, like no one's trying like to stop anything going back the other way. And that's what put so much pressure on the defenders, and nothing was working together. And so those two guys, like you got the Walshy moment where he ran back to help the defenders out. Like it just finally feels like we're all working in unison and actually playing like a proper team, which is just beautiful.
100% agree. I think that along with that and the defensive running and capabilities around it, you touched on it beautifully. It allows everyone else to be so connected and defend as a team, because Akers and the players knowing that Akers will track back allows a guy maybe like a Newman to push up and take that intercept mark.
Totally.
Saying, no, you've got my man. The communication seems to be so much better. Wiedering was a big proponent of this, I felt, where he was trusting the guys around to make the right decisions, to say, no, I've got to peel back off and run deep and be that last defender. And so many different players were able to change their opponents and say, no, you can take him. I've got this. And knowing that we've got those defensive runners definitely helps that. I just wanted to give a big shout out to a guy that was maybe mentioned in that Akers tackle. It was Fogarty. He game high 8 tackles. You knew that something that he was going to bring. He's not someone that's going to get a ridiculous amount of touches. He may not necessarily add to the goals off his own boot, but the forward pressure that he brings when he gets pushed up high around the contest, he has been such an important cog throughout this win streak to get us into finals, bringing the pressure, bringing the intensity, and just playing that defensive pressure role. And having a guy like him in finals, I wouldn't have predicted him to be anywhere near a Carlton team that would win a final, but it's a credit to what he's able to do and the role that they've carved out for him. It's great to see. What did you make of Fogarty?
I feel like we need to go back to our like best 22, 23 at the start of the season. And would we have even said his name? Like, I don't even know if we would have put him as like a, snub, or like, maybe. It was like, he was one of the first guys where it's like, he probably won't be here next year. Just crazy.
No, you're not wrong.
I guess it shows again how little we know from the outside, just from what we see on game day and VFL game day, that someone can do this and come into the team. And like, he is so undroppable because he's just something different. Doesn't need to have 20 touches to have such an impact, like you said.
No, he was definitely someone that I think when we were doing depth charts, even throughout the year, we weren't really sure where his position was. We're looking at the midfield saying, well, he's nowhere near that. Small forwards, you got plenty of those. I don't see him anywhere near this. Depth chart he's nowhere. I'll try and find this, see if I've still got this, of our depth chart end of last season.
Oh no!
Can I find him on the board? This is the
hard
thing.
Expose us.
I can't even find his name currently, which is not ideal.
You'd already delisted.
I'm pretty sure we didn't maybe even have him on our end of 2022 one. We've actually probably forgotten the man. Started 2023, we had him at the bottom of our small forwards and half forwards, basically behind Josh Honey. I think that kind of tells you all you need to say about where his kind of performances were at, where his role was at. And now all of a sudden, we look at him going, such an important cog to how we play finals football. Strong contested, you need tackle pressure. I absolutely love it. So I want to get in talking a little bit about the game. This is probably going to be a long review, but I want to make sure we get
Let's do it
onto everything. First half, a little bit different to the second half. We've mentioned the fast start. We're obviously up by 29 points at the main break. What did you kind of make of that first half? Did you feel the dominance? Were you pretty confident that we'd go on with it? Did you see any issues maybe that were a cause for concern, knowing that eventually, in hindsight, Sydney did end up working themselves back into the contest? Where were you sitting, I guess, at halftime?
I was definitely very confident. I definitely felt more like this is going to be a 50-point win than I did a 1-goal game. They'd kicked 2 goals, hadn't they? In a half.
Yes.
And
one
they
late as well.
Exactly, right? They missed a lot of opportunities too, though. So I guess that is kind of like a little bit of a warning sign. Like Warner, like the one that Warner missed on quarter time, which was the biggest gimme, like free kick ever. Like he should be slotting those ones. So I was feeling pretty confident. I thought we were getting goals in different ways. I liked when we were doing the systematic short kicks through the ground. I like when we were taking risks, even though they don't always pay off. So there honestly wasn't a whole lot of warning signs for me, I suppose. But I know that you're going to have some.
Yeah, it was definitely not to that degree. I was still feeling very confident. There wasn't still a lot of nerves at this stage, and potentially the scoreline helped that. I did think that the game was a little bit closer than the scoreline suggested. Around, I felt like our midfield maybe wasn't having the dominance I anticipated. I thought that would be the area that would maybe dominate this game. Sydney still have a really good midfield, but I thought ours would be better. I thought the contest was the win, and maybe we'd get hurt on the outside, where it almost felt like that was the opposite. I thought Sydney were winning the contest, but we were doing better on the counter, moving the ball on the outside, which was a weird flip reverse of it all. But I think what was still giving me confidence was I noticed that we weren't perfect. There were still some issues. The best part of our game was down in that clearance work, and our defense was still so strong. I thought the way we set up behind the ball, they missed a lot of opportunities, Sydney, but we weren't giving them great looks at goal. It was very similar to what we were maybe having to deal with throughout the bad patch this season, where you're chipping around outside 50, but you're still having to take a shot from 45 out on a ridiculous angle. There wasn't any clear-cut, yes, 100%, this is a gimme. Conversely, we were nailing all of the more difficult shots, which feels so unlike Carlton. We were nailing the set shots, building the scoreboard pressure. So I thought, look, it's still close. It's because their midfield's still playing well. I think third quarter is going to decide the game. There's a chance they can come back into it, but for the whole, we continue to get goals out the back. We're going to be winning this game easy. And I definitely didn't predict the end to this game that transpired. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's, now that you mentioned it, that was, I guess, the thing that gave me so much confidence was how impenetrable our defense just felt. And so even though they were up in the contest game, I was like, well, if we just, like, who is going to steal this game from us in the forward line?
It's hard to when you're looking at, Heaney didn't do anything that whole game. Papley, nowhere really to be seen. Those are the guys you kind of worry about. And when we're able to do such a good job to stop those guys, you definitely start to think, well, it's Errol seems like the guy that's doing everything for them.
God, he's good.
One person isn't going to win you a game, but we will touch on the second half, particularly the last 10 or so minutes of this game later on. But I want to pivot and head towards something that you were touching on just a little bit earlier. I want to have some fun. Let's talk about the positives. What were some of your favorite moments from this game. Some that hopefully we can look back on in 10 years and say, remember that one final out of the 10,000 that we played in the last 10 years, the first one that felt a bit more special because it was the first one. What are some of your favorite moments that you're happy to look back on and reminisce?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. First of many. Like I said, I think the Charlie goal, like just the whole crowd finally, I guess that was like the moment after we'd, kicked the first two, and the Cottrell chase down. We've kind of already spoke about those. Have to talk about the Cripps goal.
Yes.
Because, maybe a bit of a lucky free kick, potentially.
Yeah. The Sydney Bayonets to me were not happy with a few decisions. I tell you what, you were struggling potentially with some St Kilda fans at the GWS St Kilda game, maybe not knowing the rules. It was so funny, the reactions of all the Carlton fans around me anytime the Sydney fans would be jumping up and down for a free kick that like obviously everyone's biased, and I was having a lot of fun kind of giggling at how biased we were, how biased they were, and just the polarizing reactions of someone literally sitting 2 meters away, if that. I love that. Totally. But there was some that they were getting, like, there was some of them about to jump off like level 2 to run onto the field to the umpires. And I'm going like, have you read any rule book? That is so clearly just not a free kick. So I was having a bit of a giggle to that, but probably the Cripple one, very lucky to get that free kick. I did want to say that in our preview show, in our match build-up, we went through the what do you want to see from this game.
Here we go.
And one of mine was hoping, and I actually didn't think this was going to happen, but I was like, you know what needs to happen? You know who deserves a big moment, a big captain's goal? It's Cripper. And I think context of that third quarter, all of a sudden Sydney get back into it. We need some goals for Cripper to nail a tough set shot that he's missed so many times in his life, to turn to the crowd, give it the let's fucking go. Was that the loudest roar for the game, or was there anything that topped that one for you?
Oh, that's really hard. I feel like the final siren probably had to beat it, but I think this was a close second because, there's probably a lot of surprise, like you said, around the ground, where it was like, he turned back the clock to 2022, set shot Cripper, and he's like, let me just dob this. Unbelievable. I'll never forget that.
Do you think, obviously the crowd was such a big thing that we maybe haven't gone as in depth on that we maybe should have, and the impact that had on the game as a whole. Was that how important was not only Cripper nailing that and it being Cripper, but just the crowd noise for some of those goals and some of those moments? Do you think that played a large role in getting us over the line?
Yeah,
boosting the confidence of these lads.
I definitely think so, and they've reiterated that point in the words that the players have said, and I believe them. Like, I think we're pretty fortunate. Like, we kind of spoke. I think maybe we spoke about this after the podcast last week. Like, I think it was great that we got an in-state team for this first final. Like, it would have been a very different thing if it was like a Collingwood or someone. So it was great to be able to have like that dominating fan base. Like, watching the game back yesterday, and like the boundary line commentators and stuff are saying they literally can't think of a louder game they've ever been at, and I believe that. Like, we were bloody raucous. Yeah,
was that the best crowd you ever been a part of? And what was that? I kind of want to get your take on this again, because the last game that you went to of AFL football was the
Hawthorn
game. You had sort of like Essendon into Gold Coast into Hawthorn.
Correct.
How different, and what was your kind of feelings around just how big? Obviously, it's a finals crowd, so it's the anticipation is bigger, but you maybe haven't experienced the rise of the noise since we've had this run. How was that for you to experience such a raucous crowd? Were you sort of overwhelmed at any stage? I'm just really keen to hear your thoughts on it all.
I think so. I feel like I had the top tier, like, favorite game I've ever been to would have been Richmond round 1 last year. And like, that was first time I really felt that like Carlton dominated passionate crowd. Yeah, I feel like you and I reflected on like the Gold Coast game, or it might have been with someone else. Like the crowd was very different at that Gold
Yeah.
Coast game. Like it felt like all the fair weather supporters had fucked off. It was just like it was the real people that were looking for Carlton pain went to that game, because it was like, if we lose this game now, holy smokes, this is going to be bad. So it was a bit of a more chill, calm atmosphere for that 50-point win. Man, it was just, yeah, I was so swept up in it. Like we were all the Carlton people around us, a high five and like randoms high five and hugging during the game with the goals. Everyone's chatting. Like it's so special to be part of such a big club like this.
And I love that you've said that. And how good, obviously it's different for this game since there was 3 Sydney supporters in the whole stadium. But the fact that the Bays tend to be, for the most part, like very Carlton defined, very opposition supporter defined. I found that was almost made the atmosphere so much better, because you just knew you were in a complete Carlton section. And I was similar to you. Like my Bay was absolutely rocking. You had bloke next to me, never spoken to, never seen in my life. All of a sudden we're best friends and we're high-fiving and we're trying to figure out how much longer's to go in the game. And,
I've
got a bloke to my right trying to start some chants. It started getting me up and about to try and start the Carlton atmosphere up on level 2. It was just an exciting thing where every single supporter was trying to get up and about, was enjoying the moments, and everyone was on their feet for every little thing. It was
how good,
just a whole nother level. It's 10 years of pent up, I don't even know what, that was just expelled in that contest, in that full game. It was beautiful. I want to touch on a couple of moments that we might delve into now, but we'll obviously expand on them as we go through them. One little one was, I thought Chera's goal was big for me. Yeah. That was one where we'd had a few lovely set shots that you maybe like a Jack Martin, Cunningham, where I'm thinking like, oh wow, we're nailing everything here. When Chera kicks that one against the Tide, just going like, oh my God, this is a different game. Like this is ours. We're not kicking these in a losing game. And to start to get some momentum from that, I just felt that was a big spark. Was that goal? Did that goal hit anything for you? Was there any other moments like that?
I definitely did. I didn't put it in my top 4, but there was I will remember all 11 of these goals like in their own right. But the fourth thing that I put down as a fave moment was the Akers goal, because it was such a it was just such a release valve. Like I'm looking now, so the second last goal, I believe, that we kicked was the Cripps one. And that was the 21-minute mark of the third quarter. So it was over a quarter between goals. What a moment. Like just the whole play leading up to it. It was just rising and rising and rising until he puts it over the line. And Jeffrey-esque.
There was such a tension building. And I definitely started to get, I'm not going to say that I wasn't nervous throughout this game, because that would just be a lie. But what I maybe am surprised about was the level of nerves. I've been more tense for games far less important than this one. Again, something that was insane, but there was still clearly oh my God, like we can't be doing this. We can't surely drop this game. We just need that one moment. And I assume I was similar to you, where I don't know what came out when that goal was kicked, but I don't think a goal has ever gone in, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like I just looked to the heavens and expelled anything I could out of me, just being like, oh my God, that was it. That was the moment of, we've won this game finally. That was just such a relief, such a mental release. It felt like I was about to faint when that goal genuinely went through, because
I had moments
everything, like you said, the last time we kicked a goal was the third quarter. Everything was building to that moment. It finally happened, and it was just like oh my God, it's happening. This is it. And it almost didn't happen, but Akers was massive. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on that massive goal and your reaction to it? Because I thought level 2 was about to collapse. It was that raucous up there.
I think you and I were similar for once. Because I can't remember if it was this moment now, but there was a moment where I stood up and cheered for a goal, and then I had to sit right back down because I was like lightheaded. I was like, I gave that one a little too much there. That was, there's celebrating, and then there's, what's gonna happen when we win this game? Which is gonna be very emotional.
I definitely got a bit dizzy, and I was seeing a little bit of like in the cartoons when all of a sudden they get a hit on the head with these stars. Genuinely, that was going around my head a little bit for that one. But the other, clear. There's two moments, one bigger than the other, that were moments of the game clearly. It's Blake Acres again.
Yeah.
The hand of God, twice. Our season feels like, and maybe this is another comparison. I'm your Jeffy Garlett one that I have seen the incredible footage of chopping those two clips together. But last year, I don't know if I'm drawing something into this that maybe isn't there, but last season, a turning point felt like the Jack Nunes touched not going our way against Richmond when we were mounting a comeback.
Sure. Yeah.
And it felt like everything past that moment in the season sort of really started to decline, and sliding doors.
What about that?
Damien Barrett moment. That review goes our way, a 50-50 call that you don't really know what's going on. Did he touch it? Did he not? Maybe we're probably playing finals. We might have won that game. Who knows? For this season to also have such a big moments with the arc. You've got Caleb Marchbanks.
It's our friend.
Definitely touched it about 7 times with every part of his body. That is confirmed. But then to have Blake Acres twice with one arm, particularly that second one, and then being able to look back and actually have the perfect photo taken to show clear and definitive once and for all that he did touch that. I mean, that there has to be, again, some weird footy god script in these little moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was our game to win, I think. It was all on our side. They weren't going to let us lose this one. After all the heartbreak. Yeah. I wonder if he's going to trim those fingernails this week, or he's going to let them just grow another week and hopefully get another couple on Friday.
At what stage can the players, like, I don't know, last 5 minutes of a game, maybe like not the massive foam fingers, but find if you can get a smaller one, paint it skin tone, strap it on to your hand, and see if maybe you can get away with just extending the fingertips a little bit.
I think with the quality of the arc, if you saw that on the arc footage, you would believe that it's just a real giant hand, no matter how shit it was anyway. So
I think so. I think I yelled at one stage for that second review, which probably one of the many things I yelled throughout the game. Didn't get a giggle, but you landed, you throw enough at the wall. One's got to stick. Was just, mate, he's clearly one of those pixels has been touched at one stage. So that one got a bit of a giggle. I was very happy with that. There was probably a sympathy, honestly, for the trash that I was talking up there.
My favorite part about going to the football is is a few of those lines that you throw out there where I'm like, I don't know.
That one was no good. What are you doing, mate? But let's swiftly move on from that one. There's some other stuff I do want to talk about, but I want to land on this, go to some listener questions, so we hopefully don't trample on everything that you guys have asked, which we normally do because I ramble and I talk a lot. But let's go to those last few moments.
Yes.
Last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, last quarter. And I want to know everyone else's thoughts, feelings, emotions, what they went through, what they felt at the siren. Put it in the comments on YouTube at Navy Blue Corner is where you can let us know on whatever preferred social media you interact with us on. The last few minutes of the game, Lockie, how were your emotions? How did you see that play out? Were you confident? Were you worried? Were you stressed? When were you tracking it on your phone to see the clock? Run me through it all. And then finally, when that siren went, just I want to know your experience.
I think when oh geez, no, my confidence went fully out the door. I think once they started just kind of peppering us with inside 50s after that Acres goal. Once it got back to 12 points, it was like, oh, this has just got like an ominous feel to it. And we were just doing the same thing. Kick it long, down the line. They run it back in. Intercept. Long down the line. They send it back in. And it was like, are we going to do anything different? No, we're not going to do anything different. Yeah, once that McLean goal went through, it was like, holy shit. Are we going to lose this in overtime? Is that just the most Carlton thing ever to happen in this game? Yeah. So no, my brother was on the AFL app getting the countdown for us, and I guess once Newman took that mark, definitely a few tears came out from me because it was just an overwhelming emotion of happiness, like the relief of it all, like just so built up throughout obviously the game and the week, just came out at the end. And yeah, like I said, I can't remember a happier time watching Carlton than the moment that siren went and the whole crowd went up.
It's so special. It's hard not to get like emotional talking about it, which feels it feels like a part of me wants to just be like, mate, it was an elimination final. It means fuck all. But no, like I think those that are genuinely trying to peddle that, like Stevie Johnson, genuinely.
Oh, how good is that take?
Fuck up. Like, have a worse take. What are you doing, mate? Seriously, you're not the smartest man. Maybe stop trying to get your opinions out there, which is maybe rich coming from me. But like, from everything we've been through, the limited experiences we have had, it could be another 10 years before we have this moment again. It is finals are so hard to get into. How many clubs haven't made finals in how many years? How many clubs like Essendon haven't won a final in how many years? You don't know what's going to happen next, how long things are going to take. You need to latch on to everything, and being a fan is enjoying it and embracing it. And that was the attitude I tried to take going into the game, of just breathe it in. How much have you longed for being able to sit at a final and just have the national anthem be played and the roar afterwards? It's the little stupid moments that us fans in our age demographic haven't had. Those moments, you watch them on TV for years and you just go, it's the little things I want. It's the roar before the first bounce. I just want to be able to experience these things. And when we were so young, the first time we experienced it, I remember a lot of it, but wasn't as invested, didn't understand football, didn't understand life. It just did not mean as much as it did this time. And for me, watching those last couple of minutes, there was still a weird arrogance and confidence, particularly when that Acres goal went in. I thought, okay, game done. Then there were some hairy moments, but Jack Martin starts stepping up and you're going, okay, we just keep taking these intercept marks. It feels like one of these has to be the intercept mark that finishes the game.
I know.
Rather than one that just goes back to them for another inside 50. Then they just get another of many throughout this game of just shit goals. Another reason why we deserve to win this game, for me, I felt like our goals were so much more deserved, whereas we probably gave them a few.
Sure.
It was so scrappy and nothing goals. It wasn't individual brilliance. It felt a bit like the ball bounced the right way. It goes through Martin's legs, different things like this. And you think, this is shit. And there's like 30 seconds to go. I've got the AFL app in hand, just counting this down. My thoughts were, as long as they don't get this clearance, if we make this a stoppage, we've won the game. That's what I was telling myself. We get the stoppage, and immediately it's Well, we need to get another stoppage.
Yeah.
The goalposts have shifted immediately. And then
that's such a commentator thing to say, where they're like, if they just get the next goal, they'll be fine. They get the next goal. And it's like, well,
okay, maybe not.
You're talking shit. That means nothing. Like, anything can happen.
And then, yes, the moment arises, even before the Newman mark, as soon as it was like scrapping around, I, again, way too confident. Don't know why I'm not stressed.
Oh, God.
I let out a da-da-da-da-da in my seat well and truly early before the mark. Because I was like, this is ours. We've won it. We've done it. And then, again, you can't script it. There's something so good about the roar of the crowd at that Newman moment where every person in the crowd knows that we've now won the game, and then have immediately after by an even bigger roar. It's like, if you had any breath left in your chest to expel, it's coming out now when that siren was there. And it was just, it was euphoric. It was incredible. And I reckon it's probably the first time since 2012, 2013 that after a win, got the jam donuts afterwards, lined up, got them, and that is just one of those moments now that it's like, let's go. Only winners get the jam donuts after the game. I was ready to slap some out of some Sydney supporters' hands, saying, what are you doing, fellas? These aren't for you. You are not allowed to have those donuts. Get out of it. These are for winners only, you idiots. But
I'm surprised you said you lined up for them. I thought you might have just walked straight outside.
I'm handing them out.
Someone.
I'm behind the counter, throwing the donuts out. Yeah, you're a winner. You're a winner. That's all right. You're finally doing
you're finally doing the food truck business, but jam donuts, not the snow cones.
Snow cones. Oh, that is a great
I had a couple of things from what you just said there, which was great. I mean, I didn't put negatives. I put improvements after watching the replay, and one of them was it's ridiculous that Martin and Gov both took intercept marks in the last minute, and yet they still kicked a goal with 30 seconds to go. How do you get 2 intercept marks within 30 seconds and they still manage to kick a goal? Let's not do that on Friday. And to your point about we might not, I can't remember how you said it. Like, we might not experience this again for another 10 years. Like, this feeling we may never feel again. Like, hopefully we never have another 10-year finals drought. Hopefully we never have to go through like a rebuild like this, all the heartache. As I was kind of looking forward to the game over last week, I was watching some old finals stuff from other teams. And I'm sure it has to be up there for you. One of my favorite non-Carlton moments of all time is the Nick Davis 4 goals in the last quarter.
Special.
And that got me emotional watching that, like on Thursday night or whatever it was. And you think about that, like how insane all of that was. That was set like a 72 or whatever it was year drought for Sydney for a flag. So like, I think there's other teams, like I think Sydney people, when they see how we as fans reacted to this, they could look at that and be like, understand it. Whereas maybe like our Collingwood friends and people like that, they're the ones that are like this. Yeah. I don't understand why you would get so excited about elimination final, but yeah. So hopefully we will never have to feel like that again, but we may never have a more special game than that because of just everything that it meant.
Yeah. And we definitely will because we're winning the flag. Like your prediction was at the start of the season, and when that does happen, which will be very soon, that feeling is going to be incredible. But it's just those little moments that we've had to, because of our predicament, think about. Imagine what it's just like to play in a final. Imagine what it's just like to go and see your team play in a final. What's it like to win one? These are things that I think some supporters obviously do take for granted, that they go, well, every year we're pretty much in it, like Geelong fans and things like that, that for most of our teenage adult life has been, that's the constant. This team's in it. You just kind of know every single year, yep, you're going to be playing finals. It means a lot more when you haven't had those experiences. And when you've got the best fans in the game, the loudest fans, everyone's saying that's not only just the loudest Carlton game, but the loudest game they've ever had. And it wasn't even a grand final. We'll be hanging off the rafters when we make the grand final. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. And there's still a lot to talk about from this game. We're going to be going long because this game deserves it. We're doing finals content, but Lockie, before we go into what I've got written on the run sheet, I want to go to some listener questions. And if you want to get your listener questions in, always, I chuck them out on Twitter at Navy Blue Corner. Normally after the game, there's a post that I throw out there for you guys to reply to. But if you're not on Twitter, if you're on another social media where you interact with us, or if you just like the emails, we've got that too. All links to socials and the emails are in the description, in the show notes. At Navy Blue Corner is the socials. The Navy Blue Corner at gmail.com is the email account. Feel free to just send them in, DM us, do whatever you need to do. We'll take a note of it. We'll make sure that they do get answered. But Twitter is the place that they happen. Lockie, I'm expecting after a big game that there are some incredible questions, and I can't wait to get stuck in. What did the people have?
We've got plenty here, so I'll roll through a few quickly before I shoot you a spicy one. So from our friend Anthony, Lone Wolf Ant, they said, how good was the captain's goal in the third quarter? Obviously, we've put that as one of our top tier moments of the game. Just unbelievable. From Brad Nickel, please give some love for Matty Cottrell, fellas. Thought it was his best game he's had for the club. Agree with that?
Yep.
Same with Breezy. How good was Cottrell? He's mainly been consistent all year, but surely that was his best game for Carlton.
He was massive. And as we've touched on, I mean, like, you need some players to step up. And he's had a good track record against Sydney, obviously, with that match-winning goal in the COVID season. I definitely remember that one fondly. But Cottrell you don't know if you're ever going to get that again. Maybe not. Maybe that's the best game the man will ever play. But if that's the best game of Matty Cottrell's career, I'll tell you what, there's a stage to do it on. And it's absolutely special. I love to see it. It was perfect. We needed goals. We needed tackles. Yep. You know you're getting a bit of fire from Matty Cottrell. The passion.
From Matt, he said Akers is the most improved player in 2023 for us, which is interesting. Another individual call-out here from SC. Was it Walsh's and Sard's best games for the year? Both were very good. Thoughts on that?
Walshy was incredible. I gave him, 2 votes. Thought his midfield work was perfect. When we needed someone to move the ball out, work rate, the late spoil that you mentioned earlier in this episode, thought he was instrumental. I don't know if it was his best performance, but also I don't know if I can specifically state what his best ever game for us is. Weirdly, I don't know if I've got one off the top of my head. Not sure if you do, but it's definitely up there. Who was the other player? Sorry,
the other one was Sardi.
Oh, yes.
How good was the Wolf?
That's the loudest the Wolf's ever been. That was big.
Boy, was it?
Enjoyed that. That was electric. Definitely helped the atmosphere and the vibes. Another one where we needed some of our more experienced top players to step up, when I think that we obviously weren't able to give Charlie the access, the clean shots at goal. We'll touch on Harry at some stage throughout this. Cripper was down for a little bit, got up in that second half a lot more, but we weren't getting that output from some. We still needed, guys like Wiedering to step up, who I thought was incredible. Guys like Sard to do what guys like Sard are able to do. And there's so many different individual performances you can highlight, but I think Sard's decision-making was one of the definite shining lights of this game, when there was maybe a few not so great decisions being made by a few out there. Not to get too negative.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I put Sardi in the very top tier for this game as well. From Raceboy 458, what was your favorite moment? For them, it was 100% the Cripps goal. What would you put as your number one?
Number one, Akers' goal. Akers' goal, I think, is it just for the moment of what it meant at that stage. And then seeing that clip of Jeffy Garlett afterwards, where it's like, how many times, do we actually get a goal where you're running into an open goal? That feels like it doesn't happen in that big a moment for a player that had so many big moments in the game. Just for what that meant, that was mine. I know you normally don't like answering all the questions. You like throwing them to me, but you're number one, Lockie. I need an answer from you.
You obviously know that we have the exact same answer. No, when I think of all of them, I put that at the top. Apart from obviously the siren, but that's not a play.
Yeah, no, I love it.
From Jace, we've kind of covered this as well. Is that the greatest Carlton atmosphere ever? I can't remember anything like it. Epic.
Yeah, that was. But I think
gotta be.
The one you mentioned, the Richmond game, I think was the end was electric. The whole game probably wasn't like that.
No,
that's the loudest anything's ever been. I don't recall the Carlton Essendon game being like that. The final that I have been to.
Yep.
That obviously there's factors of it being like 90%, if not more, Carlton supporters plays a role. But I think even if you take half of the supporters away, the noise that each individual was bringing to everything, the slow Carlton chant that we brought out after Sydney started their slow one. And we're like, I'm not having this shit. Fuck you. We're stealing your chant. We're doing it instead. I loved that kind of shithousery banter between the fan bases. And you're going to start singing. We're going to start singing even louder. We'll drown you out. The jeers as well, when they had players taking shots at goal late in the game where we need to put a bit of pressure on inside 50 and defensive 50. All of a sudden, you hear the noise ramp up. These are the little things that I'm enjoying us finally all collectively buying into, because if all of a sudden you're an opposition player and you've got the ball under pressure, or maybe you're not under pressure, but the crowd are going, oh, that surely has to make you second guess just a little bit.
100%. Very well said, mate. But I think it's time. You touched on it. We have been going for over an hour and we haven't mentioned it. We've got a couple of questions about this. So from Luch, how much money should we invest in a full-time shrink for Harry's yips? The rest of his game is fine, but you can't have those two misses, not in a final. Both were momentum changes in the game. What are your thoughts on, obviously, Harry's game, those moments, and obviously we're not going to have him on Friday, sadly.
Yeah. He's one of the last people in the team you want to have those poor moments, particularly through his struggles, I think, in front of goal this year. The first one, I think when it happened, you kind of just go, oh, that was really bad. Yeah. Sometimes Harry has a couple of issues. You just chalk that one off. Don't worry about it. Get the next one. And then start the third quarter. If you kick this goal, we're 6 goals up. Game probably done. All of a sudden, the positivity that maybe Sydney have brought out from the change rooms to start the half, going, okay, maybe we're still in this. Yeah. Harry takes a great mark, 10 meters out, directly in front, misses. They go down, kick the next 3, I believe it was. Massive momentum killer. Who knows what would have happened if he does nail that? It's concerning, particularly that set shot for me. Sometimes he goes for the snap, sometimes he doesn't. I'm not educated enough to understand how to fix this. I'm well aware that from hearing little bits he said on his podcast that he's clearly working on things and trying to get around whatever issues there are. The club, I'm sure, are doing everything within their power. They're paying him a lot of money, so he's a big asset to the club. When he's fit and firing in front of goal, he's a match winner. So clearly, you need to try and get the best out of him, and I believe they're going to be clearly doing everything they need to. And I'm interested to get your thoughts. I know you're probably angling for a question, so sorry to cut you off. Keep that one in the back of your head. But
not at all.
Apart from what he did in front of goal, I really liked Harry's game. I don't know how you felt. I thought his work higher up in the ground, creating a contest, taking the grabs, the pressure, everything he was doing was really good. He clear 2-goal assists to start the game as well, was instrumental
Yeah.
in getting us those early few goals. And then when he went off with the concussion, it was clear to me the Harry-shaped hole in this side that really played a big factor in us struggling to wrestle back the momentum. We didn't have that option higher up the ground on the wing to take the bailout mark. We didn't have someone else to help Charlie. All of a sudden, McCartan's taking intercept marks for fun because they can just outnumber the tall. We've got no one down there. There's no one else to have that chop out. There's no one else to help that forward pressure that Harry brings. So much systematically, I think, failed when we lost that key component. Sure. And while I think the goal issues clearly there, I'm not trying to take away from those. Everything else Harry is bringing is still really good. And when you take that away, we are clearly a worse side. And I think it's no surprise that we played worse footy in that last quarter when he wasn't there. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the whole scenario and his game as a whole.
No, well said. And I agree. I agree with you for sure. I think it definitely, no doubt it exposed us without him being there. It's hard. When watching the game, this may seem weird, but watching the replay, I felt like he didn't play as well as I felt he did at the ground. And I guess trying to differentiate between how he actually played and what him not being there means for everyone else. Yeah. If you know what I mean? Like what you're saying is like without having another tall there, it started to all unravel. But I don't know how many games we would have won with Charlie and Harry both playing, with getting one goal from between them. Like he definitely had he had some good moments, and we need everyone to have those good moments. But I feel like he's, I guess, someone that we rely on to have a lot of those moments in a game for it to be, you know what I mean? Like the benchmark is a different point. Like if Cunningham has like a few good moments, I'm like, that's what we want from him. But Harry have like taking a few good marks and like the handball was good. I know, like I'm still positive on him. I'm just like, as I watched the replay, I was like, okay. It was, he was still good. He was still good. And it's definitely something we have to address for this Friday, filling that hole.
This is maybe a dumb hypothetical to throw at you, but he kicks both of those goals. All of a sudden, like if you were to let's just say we're grading his game at like a 3-4 out of 10 currently, kicks those goals, what does it go up to in your books? I know it's kind of stupid because half the issue why we're rating him so poorly as well is if you maybe don't have ridiculous impact everywhere all the time, if you kick the goals, you can give it a tick. So I get that it's maybe stupid to ask the question, but one of them, two of them go in. Do you look at everything so much differently?
Yes, definitely. And it's silly that it is that kind of binary, I guess. But that's just kind of it's the nature of this. Like always, like what do you rate always game? Like if that goal had hit the post and didn't go through, would you say he was our worst? Like
probably.
So like, but it makes a big difference when it's like, well, he kicked his goal. Like he got that goal. So if Harry had kicked his 2, then it elevates it all. Particularly when you look at our forward line, and like we've spoken about, we are not expecting Fogg to kick any goals. We're not really going to get more than one from Cunners, you wouldn't have thought. So we rely on, like we need Harry and Charlie to be doing it. Charlie, I still thought played well with only kicking his 1 goal. Like he kind of, he had his good moments as well, but they both need to be better in a final. Yes. Like we're not going to win every final with the way that those two played.
I agree. I think you need, while it's good to have a lot of the role players step up and other players take the mantle, when it comes to the bigger games against even better opposition, yeah, if Charlie's kicking one goal, it's not going to look ideal for you. You're going to need a bigger
No,
output from some of these stars. You can't have multiple of them dropping. And one, I don't know if there's anything to read into this at all,
sure.
but I'm keen to throw it out there. It felt slightly concerning when Harry took the mark on the goal square. And I think it was Matty Cottrell. Don't know if you saw this. He was the other player around there. He immediately stood behind the goals
I did
and put
see
his
that. I
hands
did
up as a
notice that.
target. And I was
I
like,
did notice that. Yeah.
I kind of laughed firstly, being like, oh, hang on a minute. Is he genuinely putting his hands up to be like, Harry, focus, like he needed to? Was it a joke? Was he just trying to like
No, it can't have been a joke.
lower? Was he in a way of like knowing that Harry's under so much pressure, seeing Matty Cottrell tell you where the goals are? Does that sort of, is he trying to help him out in making it a bit more of a lighthearted thing? I don't know. I don't know if there's probably genuinely nothing in this, but it was just an odd thing to see a teammate get behind the goals to tell you, kick it here, mate, when he was a meter out directly in front.
Yeah. No, I did notice it now that you mention it. Yeah, none of us know what it feels like to be walking in to kick after you've missed the one from the dribbler already. Like just how that feels emotionally. Because I sit here and I'm like, if you and me have a go kick tomorrow at the park, not one ball is going to go like that off my boot. But that's not what this is. Like no one knows what that feels like, and the pressure and this is his entire career in the making. His whole career probably flashed before his eyes as he was walking in to have this shot, looks up and sees Matty Cottrell behind the line and just drops the ball a bit funny. So it's, I definitely do not want to be a part of the pile-on at all.
I think you can be critical, which I think we have been, but at the end of the day, it's clear that the issues are on the mental side of things, and all we can do as Carlton supporters is look, if they're picking him, which I think they should for a multitude of reasons that we'll always touch on. Obviously, he's not going to play this week with a concussion, but when he comes back to play Brisbane the week after, all we got to do is get around him. As Carlton supporters, we don't need to be the ones shitting on him, telling him he should never play a game again. That's clearly not going to be helping any situation, and I have full faith that this is going to turn around at some stage, and he's going to be banging the goals in. We're still going to get a ridiculous brain fade moment because they've always been there. Let's be honest. There's always one ridiculous moment that stuffs up. Every player has one. Harry feels prone to them more than others, but he'll be back to it. I'm at least happy that it feels like everything else in his game is still there. If he wasn't taking any marks, I'd be like, oh no, this guy's completely shot.
Totally. Yep. That's fair. And at risk of you telling me to stay away from your run sheet, I reckon we let this question lead us into the votes, which is from @Osmac1. No question from me, just love for Blakers and Martin. But who is your guys' bog?
Oh, Martin is stiff. Another player that I wanted to have in there that I think is very stiff is Wiedering. Didn't make my votes. My one vote went to Matty Cottrell. My two went to Sam Walsh, and my three was Blake Acres. Given pretty much my reasoning for them throughout this episode, thought Acres, full game, and his bigger moments were the most important. Walsh in the midfield stepping up with maybe Cripps not having his best, and Cottrell's first half and chase down tackle was incredible. Massive for us. Lockie, keen to have your votes.
Similar, but different. As I said earlier, I gave Cottrell bog. I thought it was just like the complete performance from him. And maybe I would have given Acres the 3, who I gave the 2. If he didn't get that out on the full in there at the end, I was like, is he going to go this entire bloody game and not kick a ball out on the full? Absolutely fucking not.
There's a part of me, which I don't know if this is just how messed up I am, that like enjoyed when he kicked that out on the full.
Oh, there's laughed.
Because there's that literally of just that. Oh, I can't believe it's taken this long. There had to be one. There had to be one moment where he's kicked it on the full. At least he's done everything else. But I wonder if there will be a game that he doesn't kick it on the full,
Friday.
And I reckon it's going to be the grand final because they're all going through the big ones. Who did you give your one vote to?
I had to write my stiff list: Marchie, Weeders, Chera, Kemp, and spicy take Walsh as well. I gave Sard the one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, god damn it, that man is just so clutch. Like he so rarely makes a mistake, but is still so attacking, and he's just perfect. I'm just so glad he's in navy blue. And he's in my top tier of guys that I love seeing happy after a win. Like when he's emotional, it's like, oh shit, this hits different. So one for Sardi.
No, there's so many guys you could genuinely give votes to. It's hard to narrow it down to 3. Keen to hear the listeners' thoughts as well. Drop in the YouTube comments. Let us know at Navy Blue Corner on whatever social media you interact with us on. Did you have any other listener questions, or are you happy for me to figure out where we're going with the next little bit?
Well, the other kind of portion of questions, as you would probably guess, are about team changes. I'm not sure if you want to touch on them.
We can to a degree, but I'm going to skip a little bit. There's a couple of things I wanted to touch on because we've been pretty positive throughout this, and obviously that's the fun part. We're reminiscing. We know we won, so who gives a flying F about any negativity?
Picturing yourself for the first time. Interesting. I like it.
I know. Who would have fucking thought?
There it is.
But I do have a couple of negative things that I want to touch on to help us improve for the Melbourne game. So I think it gears us perfectly into this. Obviously, there are a few hairy moments throughout this game. You've got the always, I don't know what we call this, the running into open goal.
Unselfishness.
Handballs to himself, but doesn't. Somehow kicks the goal into the goal umpire. That did end up having one of my favorite moments of the game, which was us all just as fans going, what the hell did we just see? What's going on? And just kind of still stressing a little bit to immediately look up at the big screen and Vossi pissing himself laughing at Matty Owers as he goes to the bench, which I just let out one of the loudest laughters I've ever heard at a game of football, of the whole crowd just being like, yeah, if Vossi's laughing, I'm laughing at that. But you had this, you had Harry's 2 misses, Kemp's handball receive mistake on the goal line, multiple errors from kick-ins leading to goals. There was a little bit of pre-game chatter leading into this contest about Carlton's lack of finals experience. Do you think that played a bit of a role in the mistakes that were made and some of the under pressure moments and errors? Or what else are you putting this down to? Is this just what happens in high pressure situations? There's going to be some mistakes down to nerves, lack of experience. What's your kind of take on those, and how do we kind of rectify those going into a big game against Melbourne, where they're probably going to punish you a little bit more if you have some of those errors, even though Sydney, I guess, did?
My take is probably more that it is just the general final situation as opposed to purely us being inexperienced. Like watching 3 of the games over the weekend, like this is not something that was just us. Like this is what happens in finals. Weird things happen. And there was plenty of things from Sydney that were very uncharacteristic as well, from guys that you would expect better from. But that's not to say that it's not there at all. And I think it will naturally get better this week and moving forward, like now that we've been there. But then also, every other game we've played this season, there's probably some moments. I know this is more than normal, but like Gov missing a kick in and turning it over, that's not something that's just for finals. That's we get that a fair bit. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of everything, which to fence it, which I haven't done much in this episode, so maybe I'm allowed to.
There's no reason to
now, but like I do agree with you that like things are going to happen. There's a lot of pressure in finals. You're going to be mistakes, and we have seen clearly an issue with kick-ins, I think, throughout this season. Like it seemed like it was fixed a little bit when the ball movement was working well, but when we were a little bit more stifled with Sydney setting up so well, feel like we went back a little bit to playing super, super safe of Gov, Newman, whoever's taking the kick in has the ball, and it's all of a sudden, 90% of Carlton players are on the left-hand side. Let's kick long to the left-hand side. And it's just, I don't know if the issue of the few times we tried to go quick or have that attacking kick, it didn't come off and resulted in a goal. Therefore, we kind of went back in our shell. But maybe particularly for the Owies and maybe the Kemp, I think there is just sometimes an element of they haven't had the finals experience and there are just a little bit of nerves. And sometimes when you're looking at those intercept marks, we'd have a couple and it still leads to a goal. Maybe there is an element of, these guys haven't played a ridiculous amount of finals football. And while we have had some really close games, learnt from them, overcome issues, or won them this season, finals is a whole nother beast. And I do think there is a little bit of a percentage around first-time finals jitters for so many of these players. But I'm kind of confident that now that they've had that, they've experienced what the pressure is kind of like, what the atmosphere is like, that doesn't matter now. They've overcome it. They've got the win. You can't bash these boys really anymore. We've made finals. You can't knock the club. You can't knock us that we haven't won a final. None of that really matters anymore. And now we can move on to bigger and better things. And I think that the issue is just maybe a bit around that kick-ins, because we kind of gifted them. We gifted them 2 goals in that. Harry's misses is 2 minus goals that you maybe had. I think if he kicks those 2, we don't have a few of those errors. Throw Kemp's in there as well. Take 2 of those away, and all of a sudden it's not a close game. We win easily. So maybe that flattered Sydney a little bit as well.
That's what I was going to add. I definitely put them in different categories. Like the Kemp's one, honestly, if we think back to it, he expected to be like tackled over the line, and then suddenly he had all these options. He had Akers to his side, like TDK standing there. Tom Hickey's jumping up. He gives the handball to TDK, which is like not great, but it's fine. And then he didn't expect the handball back.
Was there a similar moment to that? Was it the Doggies game? There was a game, I swear, this season that Camp, and I don't want to single out Camp, there like something like this happened that definitely, like, I believe he got chased down in a tackle and it was holding the ball close to goal because of this, like, umming and ahhing, not sure what to do. So I'm hoping that some of these things that have been more frequent issues, we kind of deal with that a little bit better next week, this Friday.
For sure. And then the Owies one as well. I don't think I dreamt this. I'm pretty sure he said in his like post game, whatever, roaming Brian or whatever it was.
I need to see that. I didn't catch this.
I believe he said that he was thinking, I'm going to be unselfish here. He's like, Charlie's given me a few goals this year and I won't give him one back. And if you think at this stage, we were like still absolutely rolling. We were so on top. You can kind of understand how him running into an open goal like that, there's so many thoughts going through his head, and he sees Charlie to his left and he's like, what's going to bring this crowd up more than me bloody just giving the handball to Charlie? Like, you can't blame him for that mentality. But yeah.
You can't, but I think I will, because like I get it and I don't mind that mentality. However, part of me, to be harsh, just thinks it's finals, mate. You need moments. You just need to go for it. Just kick the goal. Do the simple thing, because that's what finals is. It's the simple tackles, simple marks, simple kicks. Just get the goal. But ultimately it works out. So who cares in the end? And now it's a funny moment rather than a disastrous. Totally. Oh, God, remember when he stuffed up a running into open goal, which unfortunately another player is now getting copping a bit of stick for. So it can go either way. But one last thing before we go into slightly talking about the Melbourne game. It's the last note I have here is thoughts on the rucks, because I've seen a little bit of chatter about TDK, Pitt, how they went together. Hickey got a bit of dominance, and maybe it was Pitt's best ever game that he's played for us. What was your kind of takeaway on the ruck situation and how that kind of worked in the final? And maybe other selections, because we were maybe critical a bit about a Hollands maybe getting dropped, Marchbank coming in. Add that to it as well. Why not?
Totally. Wait, so are you saying that you saw people saying that some people thought that was Pitt's best game for us?
Saw a lot of people saying that was Pitt's best game for us, and they thought he
Wow,
was really, really good in the
that's
ruck. That sounded
that's hot.
very rude, backhanded for me then,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No,
I'm
no,
just
I get
kind
what
of
you're
keen
saying.
to hear your thoughts.
No, no, no. I mean, I was definitely happy with his game. Definitely happy with both of
Mm,
them. Um, like it's just shown that we tend to win games where both of them are playing,
mm,
and that kind of just lives on. Um, I was happy for Pitt to come in. Um, so yeah, I'm happy for us to keep persisting
mm.
with this for next week, particularly going up against Gorn, and I'm guessing Grundy's going to come in for old mate. Um, yeah. I don't have really any strong takes on it. I'll also just chuck in that the thing that I was most kind of like about was Marchbank coming in for the full game, and then obviously
Yeah.
that was just silly of me.
No, I think in the end, well, the changes really worked out well. Obviously, you get the win, so that helps. But
Yeah,
everyone
hindsight's
that I was
2020.
maybe umming and ahhing about, it's like, oh, does Motlops come in? Is it
Yeah,
at the expense of a Cottrell? Is it a Fogarty? Does Fisher stay in the team over a Marchbank? What's going on with a few of these guys? Every single player seemed to perform that I was
yeah,
questioning. So it's just definitely a good thing. Pitt, I thought, played a decent game. Thought his physicality was definitely needed at stages where maybe Hickey started to get on top, particularly
yeah,
when Sydney started winning those clearances in the third and the last. I thought he was quite big, but we maybe missed a bit of the element of Pitt at the stoppage in the ruck, being able to use a bit more brute force.
mm,
Still, I think he lacks when the ball hits the ground and around the ground. That I know he's not fast and he can't move well, but that Errol Goulden running goal, I just see Pitt like stopped behind him. And I'm like, just
mm-hmm.
look like you're running, look like you're trying to chase him a little bit. I thought Koning was fine, had some good moments. I thought around the ground, he's marking late when we needed someone was
Yeah,
really good as well. Probably one of the better games I've probably worked as a unit. I don't have any issues with it. But I probably wasn't rating either as highly as I maybe
yeah.
saw people commenting on. That's why I was thinking, did you have that thought and could you convince me that it was Pitt's
No,
best
no,
ever
no.
game for us? But I did think he was like a 6, 7 out of 10.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what would make people think that. Like, I guess the things that stand out for me, him and
Mm,
Motlop were the only guys that didn't have a mark.
yeah.
You want your ruckman to be getting a mark.
Mm.
Um,
Got his
and then I
hands on
guess
a few as well.
totally, he got his hands to plenty, not pulling them down. And I guess the other thing that stands out, he had 61% time on ground. Again, that was the lowest next to Motlop, who obviously didn't play a full game.
Mm.
So there's definitely I'm definitely not sold on the fact that our best team is those two.
Yeah,
There's
a
still a
guy
part.
that just sort of
Yeah,
he rucks and then he's on the bench, which
yeah,
it's odd.
yeah. So I don't know. There's still a part of me that believes that TDK, Sauce, Harry kind of
Mm,
trifecta might be the best. But like I said, the results are speaking for
mm,
themselves. We
mm.
hardly lose when we have both of them.
Yeah. And I thought, just to touch on that, I thought Harry was a lot better in the ruck, in the
Yes,
forward line. Obviously, he
of
sets up a goal
course.
with a couple of them, but he definitely competed a
Just
lot
competing. Yeah.
better than the week before. But let's quickly touch a little bit on next week, the Melbourne game. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about it. We will do a match build up, of course. Why not? We will go into depth into this a lot
Yeah.
more, but we're going to be without Harry. He's in the concussion protocols, will not play. Martin, I doubt our lawyers can get the 2 weeks down to 0 and he plays. I think the best case scenario is the 1, and then he comes back in
Yeah.
for the Brisbane game. What are your thoughts on the incident itself surrounding Martin? And do you have much of a thought on how to replace it and how big a loss these guys are?
Funnily enough, I'm going to use my French
French
I feel like I'm back in
Back
Europe.
in. Oh, did you know I was in France actually a couple of months ago? I don't know if I've told you this. Jeez.
Oh, that's
Look
bad.
at
What have
you
we been going
go.
for? I haven't almost 100 minutes. My fence sit. I've been thinking about it a bit. I haven't actually got my full stance yet. Come back to
Yeah.
me in our build up for where I stand on this, because I keep going both ways. Do you want to give yours now?
Well, I mean, I also don't have a definitive, this is my final call, but I would at least throw something out as some ideas for me
Oh,
or the other person on the podcast to maybe, what about these options? What are you thinking? I don't know, just something to lead off on. A name of a player that's on the list that could potentially fill the void. What are your thoughts?
no.
I'm not
Oh,
convinced. I was hoping for something, but I've been absolutely stitched up. Just, I don't know,
okay.
you figure it out. Oh, I got no
No,
idea. Up
okay.
to you, mate.
No, now we're getting to this part of the podcast, are we?
Yeah, we are.
You asked me a question with about 4 different prongs to it. I was putting the incident to the side, and I was going to get to, who can come in.
That's
so I'll
fine.
get to that now. You know what?
Who can come in? Who can come
in? Well, obviously, if he's fit, Silvani will come in for Harry, obviously.
Agreed.
As long as he passes his test. For me, look, it was a quarter to forget, but I would be bringing Motlop in. I think to replace Martin, we need to be bringing in someone else that we know can kick goals. And that's Jesse for me. We heard today that Dirds is definitely out for the rest of the season. So that was kind of one of the things I thought about. I think bring Motlop in for a full game.
Yeah, that's honestly where I am sitting at the moment as well, if I am honest. But
I've got a spicy take for you.
Because it's the Martin one, I think, is a lot more difficult to cover. And that's not saying that, like, Harry isn't, but we kind of don't have any other options, I guess, with Harry at this stage. And it's just bring Silvani in, whether he plays more forward or whether just him and De Koning switch it up. Whatever's working at that stage is the second ruck, and forward if you need a bigger target. I'm excited to see Silvani for the sake of how good of football he was playing before he got injured. All of a sudden, Carlton are playing well. Jack is absolutely playing out of his skin. And the thought of Jack Silvani playing his first ever final for Carlton.
Oh my God.
You think about how much Matty Cottrell stepped up in a dream that he's always thought about. Can't imagine what kind of performance we'll be getting from Jack. That will get the crowd up. Another big thing that's going to be exciting.
First goal.
And it changes the dynamic of that forward line up a little bit. Maybe that's something that alleviates a little bit of the Jack Martin pressure inside forward 50 and then the marking ability, just shifting things around a little bit. And then on face value, it feels as if I kind of had Motlop in that team already, like you said, goal, nothing, big moment, bring some pressure. Feels like the obvious solution, but yeah, it feels like you've got a bit of a left field idea behind this, and I'm excited to float.
No, it wasn't related to these two, but just the other kind of change that I was thinking about. And maybe I can give you some, this can be a little preview for the selection table tomorrow if you need some ideas, if you want to throw something spicy out there. But what do you think about Cunningham?
Yeah. I didn't love his game. I would say him and Owies were probably the least best performing, is the nicest way I could say that. We just sort of got, from the output we've seen of them, very low. And I think Cunningham has kind of been like that for a month, maybe.
Yeah, he's
dropped off quite a bit. He would have been someone that if Martin was fit, I would potentially be looking at Motlop coming in for. That would have almost been my change before Martin copped his 2-week suspension. Would have been like, I just feel like we're not getting enough out of him. If now we've lost Harry, we maybe need a bit more goal sense. I know we took a lovely set shot, but that's maybe a point of difference for a guy like Motlop to take. But now if we're making 2 changes, I'm not sure I want a third. I
I
don't know if there's someone else that we can turn
know.
to that will improve the team. And then are you hurting the chemistry that we've got at the moment? Is there someone that you can think of to replace him? And what do you made I guess of Cunners?
Well, you know me. I'm not big on making non-injury changes after a win. Yeah.
Who else
I just wonder.
Fish, maybe?
Do you just... You're going to call me crazy. I'm burying this deep in the podcast. But do you just get maybe a bit of like Nick Duigan vibe if Kennedy was to come in?
Oh, I didn't even contemplate Kennedy, to be honest. That's throwing me.
Like, we obviously have not seen him as a forward this year, but I just wonder whether it's that. So it's Harry, Sauce, and him. He can do what Cunners does. He can give him a few CBAs as well to kind of relieve some of the other guys. But could you just see him taking some big marks, slotting some goals? I just wonder whether I know he's underdone, but again, the opportunity cost. Like, is he going to give us more? If we're going to get the same, if you knew, all right, on Friday you're going to get the same thing from Cunningham, 1 goal, a few tackles, that's pretty much all. Would you take a punt on Kennedy?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm not sure I would, just because I feel as if team balance wise, Cunners around outside the contest maybe offers more than I think a Kennedy would, if that makes sense. Because Kennedy's obviously a bit more of that inside mid. That's what you're getting out of him. What we're kind of getting from Fogarty on that role on the half forward, I've been enjoying. While I think there's obviously an option for Kennedy to roll into that forward line. We know how good he is overhead. We know he's good at set shot. He can potentially play that role. It's a nice option. I don't mind it. As an idea, I guess I'm just not fully sold on where that puts us with, even if Cunners isn't performing amazingly, I feel like him outside the stoppage is still better than maybe Kennedy, because I'd like him in there winning the ball. But I don't know, does us struggling a little bit at the contested side, do you throw another guy in there to allow maybe a Walsh to be a bit more on the outside? Potentially with Akers carrying that injury and needing more wing rotation, is that an option that they have a look at if they know Akers isn't 100%? I don't know. They're definitely, I like the idea, but I'm probably gonna do the Lockie role of don't make too many unnecessary changes and just stick with that. I'd almost have, weirdly, Fisher over Kennedy in the Cunningham role. I know obviously you're not trying to replace Harry's marking ability, but you're just getting a bit more movement around the ball, because I know he hasn't played that role in quite a while, and we saw his best this season from halfback. But man, Fish was getting so much of the ball. He was helping this distribution and transition so much by foot and by leg speed. Feel like we did lose a little bit of that when our ball movement was stifled. And I was thinking, do we need to bring in another element like what Fish was offering into the squad? I don't know. It's definitely another idea. I'm keen to hear what the listeners think and kind of think about that for the rest of the week to see what the team changes could be, because maybe it's a positive thing that we can do multiple different things. What's your take on Fisher?
Yeah, he's my, like in my little notes here, my second kind of preference if we were going to go the Cunningham route. Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. Yeah, Cunningham could have his best ever game on Friday night and just say a big fuck you. So it's
maybe that's what we need. We need us to say he's not playing this week. Well, like I have given him the reverse Moz for every other player that decided to have the greatest game of AFL against Sydney. Let's hope that is the case.
Exactly right. I'll be tuning into the table.
It'll be lovely. But Lockie,
Mate.
We've been going for a long time. Is there any other thing from this game that you want to talk about, that you want to mention before we wrap this up and start to prepare for a semi-final, which we've seen a couple of these, never won one. It's about time that changes. We'll be doing a match build-up show later this week. Should be out on Thursday morning,
Sure.
Let's say it's Thursday morning. Let's do that. Anything else you'd like to touch on from this game?
I think I'm spent, mate. Almost 2 hours in. I think, yeah, like I said, best game I've ever been to for now until this Friday. Am I right?
That's big. I enjoy that. Yeah, it was just to finish this off. What a feeling. We've been waiting so long to experience that. And like I said at the start of this episode, there was just a smile on my face almost from start to finish. Even when it was tense, there was parts of me just going like, I've just wanted to have this moment, to be in a position where we could win a final, to see what would happen. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to be part of the best fan base in the AFL that gets to experience a packed MCG, and we'll have it happen again this Friday. The loudest noises you'll ever hear cheering on the Baggers for another win. But that is going to wrap up this episode. We'll be back, like we mentioned, for the match build-up. It'll be released Thursday morning. So listen to that in podcast form. Make sure you follow so you don't need to search for it. And if you're on YouTube, I believe at time of recording, we're on 699 YouTube subscribers. If you're not subscribed, be the 700th. Come
on.
Be that person. Lift when we need you guys the most. And subscribe so you don't even have to do anything. You don't have to search for the video. It's straight there in your subscriptions. But that's going to finish this episode. Up the bloody Baggers. We've just won a bloody final. See you guys next time.